Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you all. This is your host, Amina Ahmed, and you're watching Muslim Network TV. Welcome back to NextGen, where we seek to amplify the voices of young people who are sparking change in their community. You're watching us on Apple TV, MuslimNetwork.tv, Amazon Fire TV, Roku, and Galaxy 19 satellite. Today, we have with us two college students at the University of Illinois at Chicago who are part of this battle where they are fighting discrimination against the university that has inflicted that on them. We have Salam Khatir and Janine Al Harithi. Salam is the former president of Students Justice for Palestine at UIC, and Janine is the current vice president. And so SJP has filed this civil rights complaint against the university. This is something that isn't new. We have seen it happen on other campuses, but now you guys are taking lead on this initiative. Tell us about what happened, what led to what we are seeing right now. I mean, you guys have been getting a lot of coverage on the discrimination you face as well on the civil rights complaint that has been filed. Tell us what is going on.
Thank you, Amina, for the introduction. I mean, to start off, this is one event of many from these past years. However, this one, we were just able to get more community power to fight through it and, go ahead and take the further step of filing this complaint. So UIC has promoted this study abroad trip to Israel in the past years. However, this year was different and more interesting as we experienced some discrimination as we attempted to join the study abroad info session. So they initially made an Instagram post in November where people commented on the post, but the post was quickly taken down. And then following this in January, we were given notice that they were following through with the informational session of the study abroad trip in Israel. So SJP members as well as allies decided to register for this event using our names, our UIC emails, in order to bring up these important questions about the trip to Israel. First of all, with the safety of Palestinians, with the ongoing occupation and apartheid, and with the situation that is happening there. So when doing so, I'm, along with Janine Al Harithi, Soha Khatib, and many others, noticed that our names were all Arab-sounding names that were left in the Zoom waiting room for over like 20 minutes. Our peers and allies who had more European-sounding names were admitted into the Zoom. So to us, that was quite interesting as to why we weren't being allowed into the Zoom, but they were allowed into the Zoom. And it wasn't until when they changed the Zoom link due to technical difficulties, they only forwarded it to the people that were in the Zoom, not in the waiting room. However, one of our friends forwarded the link to us as we were registered for the Zoom. So we had, all right to the Zoom link as well. And when trying to, join using the new Zoom link, we were also not admitted using our Arab names. It wasn't until me and Janine decided to change our names to a more European sounding name. I myself changed my name to Rebecca Goldstein, while Janine changed her name to just Haley. So no last name, just the first name. Upon doing so, we noticed that we barely waited 1, 2, not even 3 minutes, and we were allowed into the Zoom. So Janine was allowed into the Zoom before me. When I entered, it was the Q&A session. And Janine opened up the Q&A session with a very important question about having a Palestinian citizenship, which is a Hawiyya, and being allowed or permitted on this trip into Israeli territories and through Tel Aviv. Because with a Palestinian Hawiyya, you are unable to, enter Israel or enter Tel Aviv through that airport. You would have to go through the Jordanian border. So by doing so, the facilitator, Barid Arbel, who's the professor, answered her question with an air of ignorance by saying that she faces no problems in Tel Aviv because she has an Israeli citizenship and an American citizenship. Janine followed by saying, I have a Palestinian citizenship. That is way different than an Israeli citizenship. And the professor completely dismissed that and was like, oh, you'll be fine, basically. Following that, I had and asked a question about, during that time, there is a call for a ban on Palestinian flags. I had asked a question regarding like the safety of Palestinian students, like if they were to have a flag on their clothing, if they were to have flags, how would that be treated? Like how would they protect their students? And I believe they started to catch on to our questions according to them. So they started to dismiss our questions and say any political questions will not be answered, and that we can email them to discuss it at a different time. Now, no one else had a question. Another member, random student, not associated with us. I guess their only question was, we have our own tents. And that was referring to the Bedouin experience that they were going to experience on the study abroad trip, as Bered Arbel hopes to, take her students to the Bedouin areas to experience the Bedouin lifestyle. So that question, I mean, with all due respect, it wasn't quite as important as, having the trip in Israel and addressing the issue of being in an apartheid state. Following her question, after that person, we did not interrupt. That's one thing that I would like to point out. We did not interrupt. We raised our hands when asking questions. We unmuted when there was a pause, when there was a break. However, the facilitators failed to do so. When I unmuted during a reasonable time to ask my question as to why they chose Israel out of all countries to have a study abroad trip, I was asking why they chose Israel to study there while they're ethnically cleansing Palestinians, as well as occupying them. I was muted mid-question, and the facilitators, I believe it was Irina at the time, told me, we will not answer your question. It's not political in nature. It doesn't refer to the trip. I went ahead and unmute myself again, and I said, this question does refer to the trip. You are hosting it in Israel. I would like to know why you're hosting it in Israel. Once again, we continuously experience some dismissive responses saying we're not answering these questions. We're not answering questions that are trying to disrupt this event, and so on and so forth. And to us, it was quite shocking. And it's not like it was crazy that this was happening because, first of all, neither of us were disrupting the event. We were asking the questions during the Q&A portion of the event. We unmuted when told to do so or when it was in an appropriate time. And furthermore, our questions were relevant to the trip, as going to Israel is political in nature, period. It is an apartheid state that ethnically cleanses a population, which are the Palestinians, and is occupying them. So that is the series of events that took place on January 23rd. Now, unfortunately, that same day, our friend Soha Khatib, who decided not to change her name, was never allowed into the Zoom. Following the Zoom call, she decided to email the study abroad office, to which she had a one-on-one meeting with Kyle, who is the executive director of the study abroad office. During her one-on-one meeting, she kind of started off by discussing the politics around Israel once again. However, she wasn't going through a Palestinian perspective, as she doesn't look Palestinian. She is of mixed race. She's half Black, half Palestinian. And she started to address the issue of how Ethiopian Jews are treated in Israel. When doing so, Kyle responded saying, I see that you have like the tones of a political agenda. And basically she cut into the point saying, yeah, like I am also Palestinian. This is very, this is close to home for me. Why are you hosting a trip to Israel? And like, as a Palestinian, you're restricted movement, and trying to explain to him her perspective. Kyle proceeded to talk about how himself as a gay man wouldn't go to Saudi Arabia. So why should she, as a Palestinian, go to Israel? To her, it was kind of dismissive of who she is as a person, as well as her ethnic and her ethnicity. She has a tie to Palestine. Her ancestors are all Palestinian. And for him to tell her, like, don't go because you're going to be mistreated from someone who is in an administrative power, it's like, you're supposed to be helping us as students. You're not supposed to be going against us or trying to tell us, oh, just don't go. Like, that's not our point here. And following this, with the experiences we experienced on January 23rd and her one-on-one meeting, we decided to fly her around campus to kind of show UIC students, like, this is your staff, this is what's happening to Palestinian students. And UIC is continuing their ties with Israeli institutions, which means they support apartheid states, they support ethnic cleansing of Palestinians, and furthermore, they have blood on their hand for this occupation of the Palestinian people. Following this firing incident, which Janine was present for, she can go ahead and speak more further on this incident.
Janine, yes.
Yes. So after all of these events, essentially on February 13th, we decided to have an action item where we would flyer around the physical education building about what had happened in the informational session and at a study abroad expo where we also had like one-on-one conversations with these study abroad faculty and advisors. In the physical education building, we chose specifically because Vera Arbel is a part of that department. But we were flyering in a very social area where there was just a lot of students hanging out. We were not targeting her office specifically. It was just putting flyers on tables, handing them out to students. Trying to spread as much awareness as we could about the situation and how we were undeniably targeted and censored during the informational session on January 23rd, just because we were Palestinian and raising moral and ethical questions about going to Israel, which is an apartheid state. And so we were peacefully flyering. We're college students. That's what we do. We flyer. And a faculty member, a staff member, his name is Tomer Kanan, had come up to us and he said, you guys need to stop flyering. You guys are being disruptive. And if you guys continue, I will call the police on you. And we said, okay, we don't want any issues. First of all, we don't see how we're doing anything wrong. We're simply flyering posters around college campus, but whatever, we'll just stop and we'll leave. So we had all gone to leave. We went down the elevator. And from the 30 seconds that it took to go from the second floor to the first floor, as the elevator doors opened, there was 4 police officers already there waiting for us. And that was very, very shocking just to see, just to be met with, in that moment. And it begs the question of whether he already called the police on us before we were even warned about anything. And instantly the police officers were questioning us, saying, what are you guys doing? What are you guys flyering? What's going on here? And then they started asking us for our ID numbers. And at that point, we were not detained. We were not given our Miranda rights. There was nothing said that we were detained in that moment. And as an American citizen, I know that we have the right to just say we don't want to deal with we don't want to speak with law enforcement right now. You guys can talk to our lawyers, and we also have First Amendment rights. And I also know how police officers in this country can target people of color, especially students of color. So I was like, okay, guys, you guys we don't need to engage right now. You guys can talk to our lawyers because we do have lawyers. And we went to go leave, and there is video of this. We went to go leave, and I was grabbed by my I'm the only hijabi in that setting. I'm the only one wearing a hijab, and I was grabbed by one of the police officers, and he pulled me back to him, and he said, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, where are you going?" And I said, I defended myself. I was like, "Why are you grabbing me? We have the right to leave. I don't understand why I'm being quite literally physically assaulted right now." And then I went to go leave again, and I told him, we have rights and we have lawyers. We can leave right now. And then he went to go grab me again. The second time was more forceful. And at that point, he was raising suspicion of me even being a UIC student. He was just being completely outlandish, and we all kind of went into a chaotic state where we happening? We're just students. We're just flying on our campus. Why are we getting actually brutalized right now by our campus police that's supposed to be there to serve and protect UIC students? And it's also ironic because the staff members that called the police on us, Tamir Kanan and Joshua Miller, they were standing in the corner the whole entire time, watching us and just laughing at us, while we were like in this very frightening situation where we thought that we might like possibly get arrested just for like flying around campus. So that was a very, very like scary situation. I think it begs a really good it really shows the symbol of how students of color who are in activism, especially Palestinian activism, can very much get targeted by state violence and police violence in this country, just like how it's utilized back in Palestine.
So here we see, Janine, Salam, two different incidents, two completely separate incidents. You did mention in the beginning that there have been incidents before this. This is the first time you were able to collect evidence. We have, pictures and actual just receipts of what had happened. So the first incident being that you were not allowed into this Zoom call specifically because of the Muslim sounding names. Very clear cut discrimination from anyone that hears that story. And the second one, we don't just see the university and the study abroad program targeting you, but also the police force and police officials at UIC who, like you mentioned, Janine, should be protecting and serving us as students, and also being questioned whether or not you're a student is very interesting. And it comes back to, why is that question being asked? Is it because of your hijab? Is it because you're a student of color? And again, why are you not allowed on those Zoom calls when you have questions that are not political, but about your own safety as a student at UIC? Thank you, Janine. Thank you, Sanam, for sharing the story. We will continue talking about what is being done now, right after our short break. You're watching us on MuslimNetwork.tv, Amazon Fire TV, Roku, and Apple TV. We'll be right back. Welcome back to NextGen. I am here with Salam Khater and Janine Al-Harithi. They spoke earlier of the discrimination Palestinian students are facing at the University of Illinois Chicago, but we know that there has been a civil rights complaint filed against the university. Talk us through that. What is being done to combat this discrimination with the civil rights complaint?
Yeah, so what kind of pushed us to file the civil rights complaint is because we filed a FOIA, which is a Freedom of Information Act, to obtain the records between Kyle, Vered, and Irina regarding their, I guess, plan to how they were going to approach this informational session. When doing so, we were able to see that in their email threads that they were only allowing students who the professor recognized into the Zoom. Now, to us, that was a red flag, as one, they promoted the informational session as inclusive to all people and all students. And secondly, her own student, who is of Arab background, who has an Arab name, was not allowed into the Zoom. And me and Janine changed our names to random fake names, and we were allowed into the Zoom. So it goes to show that they were planning this and were looking to to not include Palestinian people, or at least people who are pro-Palestinian. And then following this, with all of the evidence that we collected, we decided to go to our Office of Access and Equity at UIC to submit a discrimination report. When doing so, we didn't receive, I guess, a response for a few months. And it wasn't until this past July that we received a notification from the Office of Access and Equity that they found no discrimination at all that took place throughout the series of events. Instead, what did occur is SJP did receive a warning for a flyering incident, as it was not allowed per se by the rules and policies of the handbook. But once again, we had evidence to prove that there are over 500 organizations on campus that flyer unapproved flyers all the time. So we were being targeted for our activism. So with all of this information in hand, we decided to move forward and file the civil rights complaint with the help of Palestine Legal, which Janine could also speak more on.
Yes. So because we felt like we weren't being heard on any administrative levels here at UIC, we decided to go to the federal government with a civil rights complaint with the help of Palestine Legal, which has been an amazing, amazing resource for SJP at UIC. And it essentially just has all of our grievances, where we mentioned that we have been victims of anti-Palestinian, anti-Arab discrimination at UIC, and we expect, some consequences for the faculty advisors involved. We expect study abroad programs to at least have some sort of screening process, a student panel to, kind of check and oversee what kind of study abroad programs are being allowed at the school. We also are calling just for a overarching request, to boycott from Israeli institutions, because we are, at the end of the day, a student liberation group, and we, want to see UIC boycotting from, Israeli and Zionist institutions. And we feel as though at this civil rights complaint, there's clear evidence of discrimination towards these students, and we would like our demands and consequences to be met.
Yeah, and to add on, I guess what our main purpose is here too is we did even ask the facilitators if they were to host a trip to Russia and Ukraine, would that even be allowed? And they, of course, obviously responded with absolutely not, because of the current, during that time, Russia was invading Ukraine. But then we asked, why would you host a trip to Israel, as they are invading Palestine and are known as an apartheid state? And she would always, dismiss her question and say that is a question for the higher ups. So at this point, we decided to go to the higher ups, file this civil rights complaint in hopes to get our voices heard. Because as Palestinian students, we are tired of continuously advocating for ourselves, because it is 2023. We have every outlet and resource to see the truth of the occupation and of the apartheid that is happening, of the continuous invasion of our land and the continuous stealing of our land. So it is just at this point where we're reaching, I guess, the brink, and we're ready to just take on the next step so future generations of the UIC population do not have to experience anti-Palestinian discrimination on campus. Because once again, UIC is the most diverse campus nationwide, and they need to start reflecting their actions with the with the data.
Sure. Thank you, Salam Khater, and thank you, Janine Al-Harithi, for taking initiative along with your student group against the discrimination that you're facing, for the work that you are doing, like you said, for the generations to come at UIC and I believe across the country. Palestinian youth at universities will feel empowered to do what you are doing, seeing how mobilized you guys are and how prepared you are to fight against the discrimination at University of Illinois at Chicago. Thank you both for being on our show today.
Thank you for having us.
And to our viewers, we will be back next week on NextGen on Tuesday, 7 p.m. Central Time. Thank you for joining us today. Assalamu alaikum. Peace be upon you all.